Welcome back. So in a couple of previous videos, I've talked about personality and it's important in understanding what your personal resources are. So I thought I'd take a couple of minutes in a separate video to explain what it is I'm talking about. And for me, where personality sits is actually inside a broader thing, which I would call psychological performance. And this is one of those things that could, and indeed does, occupy whole books. There's some very large ones on the shelf behind me there, which talk about psychological performance, various aspects of it. But it's undoubtedly one of the most critical human performance determinants. There's no question of it in my mind. Now, there's a stack of models, there's a myriad of them. There's how many would you like that explain our performance as is rooted in the mind? And my interpretation, I'm not a psychologist, I hasten to add, but I do use a lot of psychology. But my interpretation, which is in this picture that you can see here, is that our psychological performance is founded on our personality and its interaction with our character strengths. So from two different schools of psychology come together in this. Now over these are layered our mental toughness. Out of that, our mindset develops, and depending on our mindset, we might move into a state of mindfulness and ultimately to a state of flow where we're at peak mindfulness. We're completely, for want of a better expression, we're completely at tune with the universe. Now I'll explore some of those other concepts in future videos, but I want to come back to this idea of personality and how personality is defined. So just comment below what your view on your psychological performance is, where you think you actually sit in that particular pyramid that I've put up. It's my construct, it's not out of anywhere else. Now, just turning to this issue of personality, and particularly how personality is defined, there's a whole lot of guff talked about personality, there's no question of it. And there's even more guff about psychometric testing of personality. A lot of the latter is, I don't know how I can put this kindly, it's snake oil, it's utter rubbish, it's junk science, it doesn't mean anything. Some of it is just somebody's great idea. I'm not going to name approaches, but it's just somebody's good idea. And I think perhaps a key way to spotting whether or not something is good or bad science is how much they charge you to actually take the test. Because the best scientifically valid tests are usually, what's the magic word? Free. They might charge you a bit to develop a report, but that's understandable. But by and large, they're free. The really complicated ones seem to cost an inordinate amount of money, which I don't really get, but there you go. So I think the most important thing that we need to understand about our personality is that it isn't fixed, which is the big problem with a lot of those tests. It seems to suggest that your personality is fixed. It isn't fixed. There are a few pretty rare personality disorders that are difficult to treat, that tend to stick in place and cause issues in people's lives and other people's lives. But by and large, as we grow, as we age, our personality changes. So, how do we assess personality? Well, based on research of quite some time now, 10, 15 years, it seems to me that there are two scientifically valid tests of personality. Personality. I'm not talking about character strengths or anything else. I'm talking about personality, your personality type. There's the Big Five personality test, and there's what's called the Hexaco Personality Inventory Revised, known as Hexaco PIR, which is actually an extension of the Big Five. And it talks about 6 widely accepted and researched character traits. The first of these, and it works through Hexaco, HEX-ACO. So honesty, humility, the first, is the tendency to avoid manipulating others for personal gain. You're not tempted to break the rules. You have no interest in lavish wealth and luxuries and feel no entitlement, if you like, to elevated social status. There's emotionality, also known as neuroticism, which is a whole field of psychology in and of itself. But it's the tendency to frequently experience negative emotions such as anger, worry, anxiety, sadness, as well as being quite sensitive when in an interpersonal situation. There's extroversion. That's where the X comes from. Bit of a cheat, but they wanted a nice acronym. Extroversion is the tendency to be talkative, sociable, enjoy others' company, and to have a very dominant style in conversations. Agreeableness is the tendency to agree and go along with others, rather than assert your own opinion and choices. Conscientiousness is the tendency to be careful, to be on time for appointments, to follow the rules, to be hard working. And then openness. And openness is the tendency to appreciate new art, new ideas, new values, new feelings, new behaviours, welcoming in new experiences. Now, a relatively recent university study, international, of about 1.5 million people looked at the Big Five test. And this is a huge data set. And it gave 4 research-derived personality. Research, not derived from a commercial operation looking to assert that you're a particular personality type. This is research-based. This is science. And what the scientists found is this, that there are 4 personality types that they can see within that data set, 1.5 million people. Average people are high in neuroticism and extroversion, whilst low in openness, and that's the most common personality type, if you like, normal personality type. The reserved type, the second, is emotionally stable, but not open or neurotic. They're not particularly extroverted, but are somewhat agreeable and conscientious. Again, normal human behaviour. Role models score low on emotionality and high in all of the other traits. They're good leaders, they're dependable, and they're open to new ideas. Now, the 4th type is the one that we need to worry about, in my opinion, and that is that self-centered people score very high in extroversion and below average in openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. And this is the type that points towards sociopathy, or which is sometimes known as psychopathy. These are the I don't want to over-egg the pudding. The closet serial killers is what we're talking about here. But the self-centered, the people who give rise to toxic situations. So it shouldn't really be a surprise to any of us that authentic leaders fit with the role model personality type. They're not neurotic, but they are extrovert, they're open, they're agreeable and conscientious. Authentic leaders are empathic and strong. They're difficult to intimidate. They stay calm in the face of outrageous behaviour, usually by self-centered people. And we're seeing a lot of that on television at the moment, from theatres of war in Europe to theatres of war in Israel to so-called politics in America and also in the UK, I might add as well. Role models, they don't accept lies. They don't accept untruths. They don't accept dissimulation. They are authentic leaders. They're capable of developing conversations that will counter what can be smothering over-dominance of workplace psychopaths or sociopaths. So these are the people you need in positions of leadership. Now, as I said earlier, you can take Hexaco PIR for free, and I'll put the address up on the screen now. It takes about 15 minutes, and you get a rather crude report on your 6 personality traits. It's basically a table with numbers in it, as well as some comparator scores. So if you compare the scores against the personality types, you get a picture of where you sit. It gives you some insight into what you might think of as your fundamental personality dispositions. What's really important, as should be said with a lot of these snake oil tests, and often isn't, is that don't overinterpret them. They're not self-fulfilling prophecies. It's not your future. If you're disappointed with the results, especially with your scores for a particular trait, you can actually do something about it. You can make that choice. This is the thing. Human personality is not fixed. You can still find ways to improve how you approach things. It's an area that I personally have worked on a lot over years. You can develop your personality. The point is this, and it's very clear, is that no matter where we sit on those scales, we can do something about the perceived issues. But you need to take it to the next level. So these descriptions I've just given you, neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, conscientiousness, honesty, humility, are a bit abstract, to say the least. And they also come out of conventional working psychology, and which is mainly concerned with working out what's wrong with people. Now, some of you might be aware, and you've noticed I've talked about this before, I tend to take more of an interest in the work of people like Martin Seligman, who want to know what's right with people. And in the area of so-called positive psychology is an area that I think we want to go in. And what I'd say is that if you want to build your psychological performance, then you need to turn to something much more accessible. And you need to work on your character strengths. And this is an area that I'll spend some time on over the next few videos, and try and explain how you can work on your character strengths to build your personality.